everyone, this is Kristen from Lion Learners, and I'm in my living room today surrounded by creatures that you are going to get a chance to meet and find out about. And I'm also surrounded by books. Now there are hundreds and thousands of different books that have animals in them, so storybooks with animals as the characters, and also information books where you can find out about different types of creature. And today I am going to show you some of my favourite animal stories, and then we're going to get to meet some of the animal characters. Let's start off with one of my very favourite stories to read out loud. It's called Spider by Lydia Monks, and it's all about this character here who really wants to be a pet spider and have a family that she can live with. Now, so the main character in that story is obviously the spider. This is Tia. Tia is my pet spider. Tia is a tarantula called a Chilean rose tarantula because these spiders live in the country of Chile in the wild in South America, and the rose bit of their name comes from this beautiful pink tint they have to the front part of their body. As you can see, Tia is a pretty chilled out spider. She's amazingly good at sitting still. She's very calm and very relaxed, and also very happy to be handled. Let me see if I can pick her up. There we go, there she is. And she's very happy to just chill out and sit still on my hand or anybody else's hand or on their lap. She's a very relaxed spider. And in the wild, she would dig herself a burrow, and she would spend most of her life sitting in the burrow waiting. And she would have left web outside of the burrow across the ground. And the web is for hopping insects to come along and get stuck in, and then she would sneak out, grab them, take them back in her burrow, and that's where she would eat them. So she spends lots of time sitting and waiting, and that's because she isn't a dangerous spider, and she isn't a very venomous spider, so she can't afford to sit out in the open and just show herself to everybody, because she would get eaten by lots of other things. She'd have lots of predators. She's actually very soft. She's made of very soft skin, so lots of other creatures that would like to come along and eat her. So she spends lots of her life hiding from all of the bigger, meaner things that might want to have her for lunch. So another story that I really like is Superworm by Julia Donaldson. And it has lots of different animals as characters in the story, mainly mini beasts. But the main character, of course, is Superworm. Would you like to meet my very own Superworm? Let me get her. She's just in a box down here. There she is. This is Star. Now, Star is not actually a worm at all. You might have guessed this. Superworm in the story is an earthworm. Star is not a worm, she's a snake. But because she's a very small snake and she is mostly pink, she has played the character Superworm many times before, as well as the earthworm from James and the Giant Peach too. And she's a type of snake called a checkered garter snake, which is an American version, really, of our grass snakes. And obviously, they aren't this colour in the wild. They are black and green with a checked pattern, very similar to the checked pattern look that Star has on her scales. But she is actually an albino. So she has red eyes, and she has this beautiful yellow and pink colour to her instead of being black and green. That means that she would be a rubbish wild snake because she wouldn't camouflage at all on the grass. She would get eaten by a predator pretty quickly. But because she's a pet, it doesn't matter too much to her what colour she is. Lots of pet checkered garter snakes are albino because people like them, they're very pretty. And as you can see, she's a very gentle snake. She's very brave, I think, because she's very small, but she's trusting that I am going to look after her and be gentle with her, and she's very used to being handled by people. The thing that makes her most definitely not a mini beast, not a worm, is that she has a skeleton inside her. So she has a backbone, and that goes all the way along the line on her back that you can see there down the middle, and she has ribs that go all the way along her sides, and on top of that she's got big muscles to push her along, so she doesn't need to be slithery and slimy like a worm or a slug or a snail. Those creatures have no bones, so they don't have big strong muscles attached either. She uses her muscles to push along instead. So it means that she feels very solid to hold. She's not squishy and squashy like a worm. She feels very muscly and very solid for me to be holding. So one story that does have snakes as its characters is this one, Snake Hotel, where snakes are literally everywhere. It's a really fun story to read. Shall we meet some of my snakes now? So, this is the first one we're going to meet. This is Olive. Olive is a checkered garter snake. Earlier on we met Star, the albino checkered garter snake. This is the wild colour of a checkered garter snake. So as you can see, she is black and green. And she looks very much like a British grass snake. Her face is really, really similar to a grass snake. They even have the black collar that she has got round her neck. But our grass snakes are more plain in colour. They're usually either plain green or black in colour rather than having this checked pattern. And she is the perfect colour and pattern for blending in the grass and in all the vegetation so that predators don't spot her. She would have quite a lot of predators because they aren't very big snakes. Olive is about 2 years old now, and she probably is still growing a little bit, but she's always going to be quite a small snake. As you can see, she's very, very gentle, very calm. She's a lot calmer than Star is, actually. And really, really happy to be handled. She's just having a little look around the room, trying to figure out where she is. She says, I wonder where I am today. Her favourite thing to eat is salmon and trout in little pieces, because in the wild these snakes live in swampy parts of the USA. They live near water, so they eat anything that they can find in the water. They're really good at swimming, so they eat little fish, they eat tadpoles, small frogs, also things like earthworms and slugs, anything that they find in a wet environment. So they don't eat mice and other furry creatures like some types of snake do. So she's actually an easier snake to feed as a pet, I think, than a mouse-eating snake might be. Let's meet another of my snakes now. This is Rio, and Rio is a corn snake, which is another type of American snake. And these snakes actually live in the cornfields, in the farm fields where farmers are growing corn and other cereals, and that's where their name comes from. And they are there because that is where they find their food. They love to eat mice and other small furry creatures, so there'd be lots of those in the farm fields eating the farmer's corn. So corn snakes are almost like a farmer's friend. They eat some of the rodents that are trying to eat the farmer's crops. And she's not at all dangerous to people. She is only interested in her small furry prey. She can't hurt people at all. They're probably the most common pet snake in Britain, and that's because they make really good pets. She's fully grown. She is about 6 years old now, and she won't get any bigger. So she's a very nice size for a pet snake. She's very easy to handle, but she's not too delicate either. And also they are just super gentle, very, very relaxed snakes, very happy to be handled. As you can see, Rio is very nosy, Really, really inquisitive. She's having a good look at the camera. She really enjoys being out and about. She's actually missing going out and meeting new people as much as she used to. She loves to be in different places, meeting different people, being handled by different people. She really, really enjoys that. She's very nosy and quite lively. She's got lots and lots of energy, haven't you, Rio? And she's a very beautiful snake, as you can see. Corn snakes come in all kinds of colours and patterns as pets. In the wild, they are an orangey kind of colour, a bit more orange than Rio is. She is a snake called an Ockety corn snake. So she has these lovely red saddles on her back and lots of dark colours on her too. So she's black and white like a piano almost underneath. She's very, very pretty. But you can get all kinds of colours and patterns in pet corn snakes. So here is another really lovely animal story. It's called Rabbit's Wish, and it's part of a series of stories all about Rabbit and his best friend Hedgehog and the adventures that they have together. Shall we meet one of my bunnies? This is Ted. Ted looks very like the rabbit from the story Rabbit's Wish, doesn't he? He's a really similar colour with floppy ears. He is a type of rabbit called a plush lop, which is a Rex rabbit, which is a velvety coated rabbit, crossed with a lop-eared bunny. So he has a lovely, super soft teddy bear-like coat and floppy ears. And right now, I don't know if you can see, his coat's molting a little bit. He's getting prepared. Winter is coming, so he's getting ready to have his super thick winter coat to keep him warm. And Ted lives with his best friend Cookie. Cookie is a Rex rabbit, and usually they go absolutely everywhere together. But at the minute, Ted's in here by himself to make my life a little bit easier. He is a very cheeky chap, but a very lovely, friendly rabbit who likes to be out meeting new people. Don't you, Ted? As you can see, he's very happy to be handled. Ted's favourite thing to do is be out in the garden. He loves to be out running around, eating grass, nibbling on hay and investigating things. And he also likes to dig. Don't you, Ted? Shall I meet another of my creatures now? This is the lovely Thistle. And in the Rabbit and Hedgehog stories, the rabbit's best friend is a hedgehog. Thistle looks very much like a little hedgehog, although he isn't actually a hedgehog at all. He is a creature called a tenrec, which is a spiky shrew that comes from the island of Madagascar. But he has spikes for the exact same reason as a hedgehog does, to protect him from predators, to make it harder for them to eat him. But his spikes are an awful lot softer than a hedgehog's. He feels just like a soft hairbrush to stroke. And he doesn't curl up in a ball like a hedgehog to protect himself. As you can see, he's not making any attempt to curl up now. Just like a hedgehog though, he is a night creature. Normally, he's fast asleep right now, and then he wakes up at night time and he's very, very busy rummaging around, looking for food, climbing on things. So he climbs really well, much better than a hedgehog does. He uses his claws, you can see, to help him to climb on things. And his favourite thing to eat is definitely insects. So he uses his big nose to sniff them out and his snout to rummage around and find them, and then he gobbles them up. He's got quite sharp teeth. He loves to eat mealworms, they're probably his favourite. But as a pet, he also does quite like to eat cat food, scrambled egg. Sometimes he'll eat fruit. Bananas are his favourite thing. So he eats all sorts of different things, but definitely insects are his favourite food. He's in a very, very lively mood today for some reason, and he does not want to look at the camera. He's very interested in what's going on behind me. Aren't you, Thistle? Oops, there he is. Isn't he cute? So this is one of my favourite Roald Dahl stories. It's called SEO Trot and it stars Alfie the Tortoise along with Mr. Hoppy and Mrs. Silver as well. And there are a lot of children's stories out there that feature tortoises as their characters. Shall we meet my tortoise and find out maybe why that might be? This is the lovely Rayo, and Rayo is a redfoot tortoise because, if you look closely, she has spotty red feet, even at the back as well. This type of tortoise comes from South America. They live in the Amazon rainforest in the jungle. But Rayo has never been to South America. She was born in Nottinghamshire and she's always been a pet. And she's lived with me since she was about 6 months old, and at that age she fitted into the palm of my hand. So she was a pretty tiny tortoise. As you can see, she's grown a lot since then. She's 4.5 now. But she will grow until she's about 10 years old, so eventually she's going to be a pretty big girl. But tortoises obviously do everything slowly, including growing, don't they, Rayo? But you might be surprised to find out that actually she's got quite a lot of energy. She loves to be out and about. She spends most of her day wandering around looking for trouble, don't you, Rayo? She moves slowly because she's carrying this very heavy shell that she wears all the way around her. So it means that she can't move particularly quickly, but it doesn't stop her from wanting to spend a lot of her time wandering around. And if something's in her way, she will use her shell like a bulldozer. So she'll pull her head into her shell and she will go boosh, and use the front part of her shell to knock things over. Or sometimes she uses the back of her shell and she swings her bottom like this from side to side to use the back of her shell to push things over. She especially likes to do that with my bag of dirty bedding and poop whilst I'm cleaning the other animals out and make a mess all over the floor. Don't you, Rayo? She has a real sense of humour, much more so than you might expect a tortoise to have. And another thing she loves to do is eat. She is very, very greedy. If you look closely, you might see the remains of her breakfast around her mouth. She loves to eat salad and vegetables and fruit as well. This type of tortoise eats more fruit than a Mediterranean tortoise because she would find lots of fruit in the rainforest. Her favourite thing is probably strawberries, which she wouldn't find in the rainforest, but she loves to eat strawberries. And sometimes this type of tortoise eats insects as well in the wild. So she'll occasionally eat things like mealworms or a little bit of wet cat food or something like that. So she's got quite a varied diet, and eating is one of her favourite things to do as well. And she's a lovely, lovely creature to have around. She is very much full of character, aren't you, Rayo? So, as well as being an awful lot of stories with tortoises in them, there are also many, many stories which have dragons in them, from very, very old tales to some that are much newer. So this is only one of them. Shall we meet one of my creatures who has dragon in his name? Here he is. This is Blizzard. And obviously Blizzard is not an actual dragon, but he is a lizard called a bearded dragon. There are lots of lizards that have dragon in their name because they look very much like a dragon might do. And he's called a bearded dragon because if he was frightened or cross about something, he can turn his chin, which is yellow and floppy at the moment, black, and puff it right out so it looks like he has a great big black beard. And at the same time, Blizzard would go and puff his body out sideways so that all of this wrinkly skin on his sides puffs right out to make himself look as big as he possibly can. That's what he would do if he was a wild-lived lizard living in Australia. That's where bearded dragons live, in the wild, instead of being a pet, and if he thought a predator was after him. Because he's got no real way of hurting anybody or defending himself. He has to look scary instead and hope that everybody leaves him alone. He isn't scary at all. He's a really, really lovely lizard. And as you can see, his chin is bright yellow and floppy. That means he's really happy right now. He loves people. He loves lots of fuss and attention from people. He likes to go out and meet new people. He loves to be out and about, meeting people and being humbled by all sorts of different people. He really, really enjoys that. But he also loves to be on camera, so he's posing right now. He's saying, "Aren't I the most handsome dragon?" He thinks he's very, very handsome. And he's actually just finished molting. He was molting or shedding his old skin for a lot of the summer. So he is now looking more back to his most handsome. He's got lots of brand new skin that's very patterned on his back. He is a very lovely lizard to have as a pet because he loves to be with people and he loves lots and lots of fuss. Don't you, lizard? Let's meet another creature of mine who I think looks a lot like a little dragon. This is Gwen, and she is a different type of lizard from Blizzard. She is a crested gecko, which is a rainforest lizard. And she has these amazing grippy feet because she would spend her whole life, if she was a wild lizard, up in the trees. You can see her holding onto my hand there, almost as if I'm a branch. And that's because that's where she is safe. So she is designed to look like part of a tree. She has these amazing markings on her back that almost look like a leaf, so that she blends in. She would be asleep normally during the day. She's nocturnal, so she would stick to the bark of a tree or up in the branches, and that's where she would sleep. So her feet are even sticky when she's fast asleep. And when she is completely sleepy, her eyes sink into her head, which is rather odd, isn't it? And that makes them less obvious. So she doesn't have these big shiny eyes, and she just looks like part of a plant. She's wide awake now because we've woken her up, but ordinarily she would be fast asleep right now and she would wake up when it gets dark. And if you look at her eyes are absolutely huge, but only the black slit that you can see in the middle is open. That's the only part of her eye that's open because it's not a very bright day here at the moment, but it's bright for her. So she's just letting light into the middle of her eye so she can see. The rest of her eye is shut. If it was pitch black in here, which in the rainforest, in the jungle, it would be at night with no street lights or anything, then her eyes would open right up, so she'd have two great big black eyes and she would have amazing night vision. She can see in the dark, can't you, Gwen? So she sees perfectly even when there is no light, and that helps her to find her way around the rainforest. So she can run up and down the trees, and she leaps from tree to tree. So you can see she's got lots of spare skin around her back legs, and she uses that skin a bit like a parachute so that she can leap from one tree to another. She doesn't go down the tree and back up again because on the ground something big and mean might come and eat her, maybe a bigger lizard or a snake or some other kind of creature might have her for lunch, and she would lose her camouflage. She camouflages best when she's up in the trees, so that's where she spends all her time. I think if you gave Gwen some little wings, she would look even more dragon-like than Blizzard. She's amazing. She's a very pretty lizard, and she has what looks like big eyelashes. Look, very, very pretty. They're actually not eyelashes at all. They're made from skin. But she's I think the closest thing to a dragon that I own. She's very much like a little dragon. You can see she's got a very, very long tongue. She uses that tongue to stick inside flowers to get nectar. That's what she likes to eat. And she also likes to eat fruit. And it's long enough that if she wants to, she can use her tongue to clean her eyeballs, which is kind of a weird thing to do, isn't it, Gwen? So there are many, many stories and books that feature mini beasts as characters as well, including this one, Mini Beast Bop. And here at Lion Learners, all the Lion Learners presenters have lots of mini beasts that you can meet and handle, including these guys. So these are some of my mini beasts. This is Millie, the African millipede. This is Lavender, the hissing cockroach. And this is Speedy, the African snail. And all of these three are very friendly and very gentle. They're all vegetarian creatures. They're herbivores, so they just eat plants. And that means that they're very gentle with each other as well as everybody else. They don't have... Oh, Lavender says I'm just going to push Millie the millipede out of the way. They don't have any way of hurting each other or me because they don't need it. They just need soft mouths for eating plants. And because they are mini beasts, they don't have any bones inside. No mini beasts have bones. So some of them, like worms, are soft and floppy. And others, like Millie and like Lavender, have a hard shell on the outside. So both of these creatures feel really, really hard and tough, a bit like a fingernail to touch. They have a shell called an exoskeleton, which covers them up completely and makes them pretty tough and protects them from things that want to eat them, as well as kind of holding them together. Shelley the snail is a bit different because she has a soft, squashy body, as I'm sure you know. I'm sure you will have met a snail. But she also has this shell that she can hide in. So if she thinks that somebody's trying to eat her, she will disappear into the shell. And she can also seal up the doorway so that nobody can get in, a bit like going in your house and shutting the door. And she'd also do that if the weather was a little bit rubbish for snails. If it was really hot, really dry, she would do exactly that. And inside it would be the perfect weather for snails, and she would stay in there until maybe some rain came. And that's why sometimes on a rainy day you see the snails all out having a party. They need it to rain so that they can stay nice and moist and squishy. And you can see she's not hiding from us. She's having a good look around. Those stalks coming out the top of her head have got her eyeballs on them. And then the bottom stalks are her nose. So she's looking and she's smelling to figure out where she is. Lavender and Millie are using their antennae to feel their way around. Both of them do have eyes, but their eyes are pretty tiny. Lavender's are here on that little head of hers under her armour. So her eyes are pretty small. So she is looking around, but she's using her antenna a lot more to feel her way. So as you can see, there is a huge variety of different animal books, including storybooks, information texts, fact books. There really is something for everyone, for people of all ages and people who like to read storybooks just for a little bit of fun, or people who like to find out information and facts. There's a huge variety of things to choose from. So if, like Blizzard, the bearded dragon, you love animals and you have been inspired, why not get reading? You can hire some books out of your local library, or go down to a bookshop, or even maybe get an ebook that you can read, or an audiobook that you can listen to. I wonder what bearded dragon Blizzard would choose. What would be your favourite Blizzard, eh? I hope you've enjoyed meeting all of the animals today. So from me and from Blizzard, goodbye and happy reading.